You know?
Let me put Rollo in the spotlight here for a second, because I got a question for you. So,
okay,
like you've been married the longest. Obviously, you got the longest long-term relationship, as
25
far as
years
we all
next
know.
month.
25 years. It's been successful for you. So, question I have for you, since the topic is can a bad marriage, shorten a man's life, is one of the most important things that we've talked about is maintaining frame, right? And how important that is. So, I'm wondering, how often does the Godfather himself, Rollo Tomassi of the Rational Male book series, need to check himself when he's in his long-term relationship and he's like, oh shit, I don't want to send that text, or I don't want to say that, or I shouldn't respond that way, because that's not going to be conducive to mental point of origin and the success of this marriage?
I don't think I've ever in the last
when was the last time that you had to check yourself?
Well, okay, so let me explain a few things here. First of all, it'll be 25 years in the middle of July. Of those 25 years, I think I've had a smartphone for maybe 10 of them, maybe 12. I don't know. Like when did we start like introducing?
2008. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So as far as checking myself, I can count on the fingers of one hand how many times I've had an actual fight with my wife. Like that's lasted longer than half a day. My wife is actually pretty good in the sense that she checks herself as well. And I know if women are going to hear this, they're going to go, "Oh my gosh, he must be like, he got her under his thumb, bro. He's a tyrannical, Tyrannosaurus asshole, right?" No, that's not how it works. It's usually because we have an understanding of like what our effective roles are. Now, remember, when I got married way back in 1996, it was a different thing. Like I wasn't like the red pill Rollo Tomassi that I am today, right? But I will say this is that, and I've said this before, and people like throw rocks at me when I say this, but a good relationship is effortless. A good marriage is effortless. If you want good kid, like what is it? Good marriages create good kids, right? I mean, you've got to be the guy that's going to be right there all the time for you've got to be a good parent, no doubt. But you also have to be self-concerned enough to know that sometimes the decisions that you make are going to be very unpopular with your wife and your kid or whatever, but they're actually what's best for them in the long term. Most guys have that self-doubt. They'll be like, well, I don't want to make the wrong decision, because if I do, then I'll lose my wife and I'll lose my kids. Yeah, because they're in that mode of constant qualification. Whereas if you have frame and you've started out with frame, and I like what Sterling was saying is like that frame is established between the time you first have sex with her and the second time or maybe the third time that you do. Carrying that frame over or not losing it, that is you're going to start your long-term relationship with the frame that you established before you're in that relationship. In the first
she's constantly testing that frame, right?
Yes,
early on anyway.
Early on anyways, and then once it's like, I think that once women sort of like settle into a marriage or a relationship, and then they know what to expect from you. And if what they're expecting from you is alpha leadership, if they're like my wife's father is very much an alpha male, old school, old Texas guy, right? I mean, the guy is very much alpha, and that's what she expected from me from the beginning. Like I've told this story before. Whenever I would go out on a date with my wife and we were taking her car, she would hand me the keys to her car. And I was the one who was expected to drive her car to wherever we were going on our particular date or whatever it was we were doing. And that right there was sort of what set the frame and the tone for our relationship, because that's what she expects of me. She expects me to drive the car. She told me, I mean, I didn't realize it then, but really that act, that symbolism was, I trust you with my life. Here's the cars. Here's the keys to my car. Drive my car to wherever we're going to go. You're the one who's in the headship of this whole situation, and this is where we're going to go. Guys are going to go, well, it's different for you, Rollo, blah, blah, blah. And like, no, it's establishing that frame and living out that frame. So when guys say, oh, well, Rollo, I pity Rollo because he has to game his wife all the time. Just like you were saying, like if I get a shit test from my wife, it's not like I go, let me look at my notes here.
That's a lot of notes.
Let's see.
Perusing through YouTube to find answers.
Rollo, what would Rollo do? Right? Yeah, exactly. That's not how it works. Okay, it's
Ample
like
K says on page 92.
Yeah, it's second nature to me, right? It's like it's not like an act anymore. It's who I am, the game, right? It's who I am and what I'm going to do. when guys hit me up and they go like, oh, how do you be alpha? If you're asking me how to be alpha, it has to be, I hate to call it Zen, but you have to be that. You have to be the game. You have to be the alpha. You have to internalize it. It has to become part of your personality. It has to be your second nature. And when I say that, it really rubs women the wrong way because they think that I'm trying to brainwash guys. It's like, no, I'm giving them what you want, actually. Eventually, you want a good, successful, healthy, fun, awesome relationship where you're having sex and you're really in love with each other and you're good for your kids and you're good for each other. I'm trying to give guys that so that you can have what it is that you actually think that you don't know that you need it, but that's what you really want. And so when I say, like if my wife gives me a shit test, it's not that I don't get shit tests. I do. It's just that I pass them by not thinking about how to pass them. I just default to sort of my red pill awareness, my red pill nature. So when I have these conversations where it's like, oh, we really need to move, or I really like this house in Cape Coral, I really like this place over here, I'm just like, I know where we're going with that. And it's like, no, that's not going to satisfy you. I'm not going to make decisions based on like, because you fell in love with a new house or you fell in love with a new place or you want to get a new pet, right? Like that kind of stuff. It's like, I have to be the one who's going to pull the trigger. I can make an emotional decision or I can make a rational decision. And it's like defaulting to what's going to fit the bet, what's best for the family. And I don't think enough guys do that because they think in terms of like egalitarian equalism, right? They think, oh, well, even Steven, she got to decide last time, so I get to decide this time. And usually it's guys who are just end up supplicating all the time. And the reason why they won't take authority or they're afraid to experiment in their relationships is because if they do and things go south, then they could be divorced or their wife will hold out on them because they're their only source of sex. There's all kinds of like leverage that the average beta male sort of married guy has to contend with. So it's, again, that's why these guys in this article that you're just quoting here, it's like, that's why they're unhealthy, because they're constantly trying to figure out, they're trying to resolve the mystery of women, right?
A lot of that comes from religion too.
Yeah, and religion as well. Well, the religious part.
I mean, that study with the scientists was cited from Israel, right? And that's also embedded in Jewish religion, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Abrahamic religions for sure now, anyways. Yeah. But it's you have to remember that for modern religions to thrive right now, they depend on monogamy, because if they don't have that woman in the church, if they don't have that, like, remember, women don't earn as much as men, but they spend more than men. So they still need those women. That's why there's like ministries for single mothers and ministries for single women and stuff. And they'll blame it on men for not picking up the responsibility, which is their biblical, godly responsibility to do so. But from a practical perspective, from the latent purpose of the whole thing, it's because those guys are going to probably earn more money. That means more tithe checks, more kids, more whatever. I'm not saying it's bad for society, but let's look at what the mechanics are of monogamy, because most modern like Judeo-Christian religions anyways, anything like that is dependent on even you could even make the case for Islam right now. Even if you got if you're rich enough to have 4 wives, you're probably rich enough to be contributing to the church. Mm-hmm. So there's an economic aspect that goes along with that too.
Ryan, same question to you, man. You're coming up on a decade. I wasn't going to let you off the hook on this one.
All the time. Dude,
check yourself all the time?
Well, not that, like, every time you do something, you have to take some self-reflection. Every now and then, the girl will get, get mad. They always get mad, and flow's coming, whatever reasons you want to do. And then sometimes you kind of aren't paying attention, so you get mad back, but then you just check yourself. I'm with Rolo. Like, I think it's 12-year anniversary coming up now. I can count on one hand the amount of, like, actual fights where I was literally mad to where one of us wanted to leave the house, because... And even then, in retrospect, when I look at those, outside of the emotions, they weren't really of very much consequence either. But that's the thing with this. It's not, Rolo always says, I am the game. And then idiots always like, well, that just means Rolo thinks he's hot shit. It's like, no, it's not it. It's, you have your life, and it's going to go the way it goes. And then whatever happens around that is not my concern. Like, case in point, like, I'm not married. We did common law. In Canada, they have the wonderful thing. Well, you live together, good enough.
Tomato.
Yeah.
Got it.
But it was, and my brother's the same way. He's with a girl right now. He's about to have a kid. They never got married. But that's just because that's in our frame. We watched our parents divorce. Like, my mom's divorced twice. Absolutely brutal. Destroyed everybody. A lot of kids. A lot of issues. But we're just kind of like, well, I'm not doing that because there's nothing in it for me. And that's like the marriage approach. Everybody always takes it. And that's what I hate too. The marriage is like, well, you have to be married and you're trying to talk people out of it. It's like, no. Give me a good reason to do things that aren't in my best interest. And I think once you approach things from that, like I'm more than happy to sacrifice myself for some greater good. But if you don't make the case to me, it's not my job to make the case. I'm not going to light myself on fire to keep other people warm because no good deed goes unpunished. And then it sounds high and noble, but you play it out in normal relationships. That tends to be how it plays out. And that's why there's less fights. It's like same with Rollo. She could fight on this, but she knows I'm not going to buckle if I've said my piece and that's it. Like, all right, that's the way it is. And I either have to learn to accept it or move on. And more often than not, she doesn't want to move on, thank God. But that's really it. And it's as hard as you want to make it, you know?
Yeah.